Hi everyone, it's Megan, and thank you so much for joining us for this week's episode of Woo as Fuck. We originally had a different topic scheduled to be today's episode. However, we had a really strong message that came through that needed to come out. We pulled some cards prior to the episode, and a lot of this is channeled, really, and it's a lot of fun. It's a bit of a heavier episode, just a full disclaimer. It's about being yourself authentically and the discomfort that comes along with that, which I know is a recurring topic. However, in order for you to move forward, you really have to figure out how to sit with who you are and project that out into the world, not just the versions of yourself that you think everyone wants to see. It's a really good episode. It's a strong episode. We had a bit of a time limit, so it's a bit shorter, but I think that the message comes across pretty clear and concise, and I hope that you all really enjoy it. Lissa is currently away on a retreat with her partner and really connecting to nature, which is beautiful. So next week's episode, it will be me and a guest, which I'm really excited about because she has such a beautiful soul and you're going to love her. So thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you're all having a wonderful day, and let's get into it. Hi, it's Megan.
And this is Lissa, and today we're doing a collective reading.
Yes, and this is our first podcast recorded during the day because you have, yeah. We were so focused on the message because we talked a little bit before we started recording. But yeah, this is a really exciting podcast for us because this is Lissa's first time doing this as her job.
Yeah, guys, and it's our first time. So this is the first time that Megan and I both do not have our standard 9 to 5s anymore that we had when we first met and when we first started recording.
Yes.
Isn't that crazy? And neither one of us had any intention of leaving our positions as soon as we did necessarily when we first started.
Yeah, no, not at all.
First met. So, so we're now recording during the day in our offices. Well, I mean, I live in a studio, so my whole studio is an office.
It's all an office. But yeah. You have a space. You set up a whole space. It's awesome.
Yeah, I actually have a whole altar going today, you guys. It was all intuitively guided. It was pretty neat.
All right. So what we're doing though today is we had a whole other topic, but we're doing a collective reading because we both pulled some cards and the message seems pretty important.
Super important. And I just want to note, we did have a whole plan for what we were going to talk about today. And then I woke up and it was I couldn't even call Megan at the time I was supposed to because this reading wanted to come out. And then it's just so clear and the messages are so strong that it's just an important time right now. And I know that a lot of you are looking for validation of what you're experiencing, and just know that it will be given. What you're experiencing is being experienced by a lot of people and it's valid.
Yes. And I just want to note that that's one of the things that we're trying to shift on how things are done. So it doesn't matter if we had a specific thing picked out. It doesn't matter about a specific time or anything. What matters is that you're truly listening to yourself and being in line with yourself. And for type A people that like schedules, that sucks. I know. But it's really good to make that shift because as we're all going through it, it feels so much better to be able to just say, hey, I need 20 minutes to process this or to do this or to pull some cards or build this altar that I don't normally do or whatever the case may be. It feels great.
And for the record, Megan and I are both people that were that way.
Yes.
So we are adjusting.
Yeah, it's a big adjustment for me, for sure.
And for me, I'm super used to doing things, by the book in a certain way. So learning how to make room for ourselves as well as be open to it with others is equally as difficult. But if we can do it, you can do it because we're not used to it either.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part for me actually is I'm such a people pleaser. Like I'm working through that programming so hard. And for me to inconvenience myself, like whatever. For me to inconvenience someone else for what would in the past feel selfish, and it's not selfish. That doesn't feel very good at first, but it feels good like after the fact. When you're doing it, if you have that, and I know a lot of you do, that same people pleasing, but it gets easier, it gets better, especially when you're doing it with someone who understands.
Absolutely. Oh, and I think too, talking about people pleasing, I just want to be super clear and transparent about today's episode. I'm literally going to be leaving on a trip today. And so Megan and I have discussed ahead of time, like how much time we have. And usually we are just free flow in the moment, kind of going with it. And it's really loose. And today we're going to really try and keep it to a certain amount of time. So the actual vibe that you experience may be different, but it's because we both have heavy hitting messages, that are so important. My throat is like, and, we have a certain amount of time that we're working with. So just know that, keep that in mind as you're listening.
I actually think that was by design. I think that because these messages need to be, I kept hearing like clear and concise, clear and concise. I think that we had that happen to where it ended up falling, where we don't have a lot of wiggle room because we need to be clear and concise. Like it was by design, by spirit in the universe or whatever.
Sneaky.
Yes.
Right.
So we are going to do this reading a little bit differently. Instead of telling you about what cards we pulled, we're telling you the story. We're telling you the messages, and the cards don't matter. They were just a tool for the channel.
Yep.
So, do you want to go first, or should I?
Well, okay. Actually, I just heard. So I'm gonna go first with the overall.
Yeah. It's because you've got the bigger picture, and I've got the more like grounded Earth picture.
Yes, but first I'm gonna go with the big, and then you go, and then I'll go. Do you know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah,
because
that sounds
first
good.
is going to be super quick, and that's just that right now what we're going through as a collective is we're literally healing, or excuse me, we're purging all that does not serve us, like literally purging. Like I'm seeing, like imagine someone that has alcohol poisoning and they're like throwing up because their body is trying to get rid of the poison in their system, like I don't know if you've ever seen anybody or like with the flu, it's like kind of a violent process, but it's clearing. It's like, it's helpful for the body, even though it looks unpleasant, because ultimately it's creating space, it's clearing, it's releasing toxins. And that this clearing is creating mass amounts of change for everyone, for the planet, for the people here. And the reason that we're going through this is because we've lived in duality and in polarity for a really long time. And the lessons that can be learned in polarity and duality are limited. Like the scope of what can be learned in that game, in that paradigm, is only so much. And we've come to a close of that chapter because we've learned all the lessons. If it were a level in a game, we've completed that level. And the new level where we're going is one of equal value philosophy. So one of literal coherence, cohesiveness, community, creativity, abundance, where things are not this or that, black or white, but where everything is just everything, which creates all kinds of expansion and abundance in completely new ways, because it's no longer coming from contrast. It is coming from experience, imagination, and creation.
Yeah, and I can feel that energy. It's really powerful. The transition between the two things are uncomfortable, but also beautiful. Like, I see a lot of mirrors just in everybody's life, not just the overall overarching galactic shift, but the way that we're transitioning from being who we were before to this new version of ourselves, and how hard it was to let go of that past or those narratives that we told ourselves.
Well, and also really difficult to let go because we worked so hard. So
yeah, we worked so hard for it.
This is really important to understand, like in the old way of being, and it fades in and fades out. So understand that the split, the transition, people talk about. Ooh, they like that we're talking about this. What what people talk about in terms of the split isn't like one day you were here and now you're here. It's very much like when you change a radio from, like, if you have a dial on a radio and you're going from one radio station to the next, how one kind of fades out and one fades in. And if you were to just do like a little tiny turn back and forth, you could get a little bit of both at the same time. That's sort of what's happening. And before in the old way, we learned what we wanted through experiencing what we did not want. So we had to deal with a lot of motherfucking bullshit to get to the place where we wanted to be. So now if we're recognizing, whoa, okay, well, now this is a whole new way of being and I don't need to do that anymore, then it's really easy for our human brains to go, well, no, 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 because then that means I suffered for nothing. And that's in the old game. So there's no point in even looking at that at all because the paradigm is completely different now. So it doesn't serve you to look back and compare.
And you definitely didn't suffer for no reason, because you, with every single thing that you do, whether it's easier or more difficult or hard, and those all sound like the same word, but you get what I mean. But no matter how it went or how much you worked for it or how much you wanted it, and it feels like you're throwing it away, you're not throwing it away. You still gained that experience. You had those emotions, those experiences. You learned that knowledge. You learned what you did like or what you really don't like, because those bad things actually allow you to know, hey, I really, really hate when this happens, or I react very poorly in these situations. And you learn more about yourself and the depth of who you are in those moments. And it's never wasted. Nothing's ever wasted. Bad days suck and bad experiences suck, but you're learning something and gaining valuable knowledge and experience every turn. And it really matters how you frame it. So instead of saying that was a really shitty day and everything sucks, that was a really shitty day and everything sucks, but I was able to see clearly how I react when I'm around this certain type of person or when I'm in stressful situations or whatever the case may be. And you just like having that little bit of insight into, I did this because of this, or I reacted because of this, or seeing something a little bit more clearly, it'll really change the mindset surrounding it. So you can see the value in it. And that was a whole other tangent.
Well, no, because it's important, because that's the way it used to be.
Yeah.
And that's the way it still sort of is. And so it's basically like everything Megan was just saying is how nothing you did was wasted, because it's all carving out more space and creating more templates for the things wanted. And all Spirit is saying now, I'm going to say Spirit so much throughout this recording because it's like my channel's so intense and open today. But the only difference between then and now is that now you don't need to have the shitty day. That's it. Now, or excuse me, now when you have the shitty day, it will not be, God damn it, it's a shitty day. It will be, I wonder what in my internal experience is not being fully expressed or experienced by me to be projecting on my reality in this way. Do you guys feel the gravity of that? That's huge.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, that means that when you have a bad day, you will be able to instantly, like in the snap of your fingers, go, oh shit, I that's right. Okay. Yeah. And then you can start to really create. But the whole foundation of how we get there is the transition that we're currently in. And that's what Megan and I are going to be talking about today. And that's what came through in the collective reading. I also think that's a great segue into your reading, Megan, because yours was so much about that pivot.
Yeah. So my reading was about feelings of discomfort. So the first really strong message that came through it was, you're not going to be everyone's cup of tea, and that's okay. You're going to be the villain. You're going to be the enemy. You're going to be the weirdo that they don't understand. That's fine. And it's really about narratives that are being designed and built around their perception and your own perception. So you're holding yourself back in a lot of ways because you're writing these stories about every single thing in your life, and you're making things so much more difficult than they need to be. Instead of saying, I am someone who is vibrant and beautiful and unique, you're saying, I'm a weirdo and I don't feel comfortable here and nobody wants to see my face and nobody would relate to that. And everything that I do is so gross or whatever. And it feels like really negative and terrible. But what I see is that if you take the opportunity to really rewrite it, because we're all going to the same place in the end. In the very end of this story, it all ends in the same place. And it doesn't matter if we get there on horseback, if we walk, if we fly, if we teleport. It doesn't matter how we get there or how many crooks and turns or whatever we take, because it all ends in the same place. So by writing these narratives around your life and these stories and these side stories and having all of these internal monologues about how terrible everything is and how shitty everything is and how you have to do something a certain way because that's how it's done, none of that matters. None of it matters at all. And I know that sounds scary, but also think about the freedom of that. There's not a defined way for you to go from point A to point B anymore. You don't have to go directly from point A to point B. You can go from point A to point Z and then end up at B in the end anyway. It doesn't matter. You have to listen to yourself and what feels right for you and really rewrite what that means for you. And what's really important to get there is that you need to really embrace who you are inside, which I know, like the same thing we say every single time, be authentic to yourself. But it's really important because the way that everything around you is perceived, like the filter, the lens that you put on it, is colored by how, like what the narrative that, like what you're projecting in that moment, what lesson you're trying to learn, what thing that you're trying to do, everything is tinted by that. So if you really know authentically and true to yourself that this is what feels like it is in alignment or isn't in alignment, or you feel off when this happens, when you know that to be true, and really center yourself and ground yourself, because they were very specific about how they're lovingly annoyed and frustrated with us because we aren't grounding ourselves. We're not centering ourselves. We're not shielding ourselves. We're just letting our energy fly wherever. We're not recalling our energy. And they told us to cut that out. They being spirit, the universe, whatever. I don't know why I feel the need to say it that way in this episode, but I feel like I hear someone who doesn't vibe with spirit, and I don't know why. It all is the same. It's whatever bigger thing is out there. It's really just you because you're just a fragment of it, but that doesn't matter. All semantics. Anywho, so ground yourself, shield yourself, really recall your energy and sit with who you are and what you want and what is important. And that will lead you on a journey to basically just being able to open yourself up and be able to say, yeah, I know this is happening because this isn't in alignment with me, or I know that whenever I have this situation, I'm repeating this cycle. And you can really clearly see all of those different options and all of those different paths that weren't clear to you before. And you can see how what you're doing, you might not be able to stop yourself at first from projecting your emotional gunk all over everyone around you, but being able to, even in retrospect, look back and say, okay, I see that in that situation, I was seeing it this way and they were seeing it that way. And that's why we were in this argument. But by letting go of this and really clearing yourself, you're going to find community, and accepting yourself is a big thing, because I don't want to say self-love, but by truly accepting who you are and knowing to your core who you are and accepting the fact that it's fluid, because who you are in this moment might change tomorrow or the next day or the next day, and really checking in with yourself is the key to getting to that next place, that new world, that next chapter for us. I don't want to say new world. Who is listening to this that feels that resistance? It's okay. Verbiage doesn't really matter, and I don't know why I feel the need to interact with it. But to get to that next chapter, that next transition, that next thing is huge. And you just need to really sit with yourself and understand and ground. They really want me to hammer that home. but we're going to the next place. We're really making a journey. We're finding community. You're finding yourself, and everything will get so much easier and more clear as you move forward. And I think that's it.
As you were talking, I could just feel like my heart was like on fire. I don't know if it's people listening that are resonating with what you're saying, but it just feels like so open and so raw and so vulnerable. And it feels, oh, okay, I get it. Okay. Oh, got it. So when we take the mask off and when we're seen for who we are, it's like, it can be really jarring and scary at first, because then we're going to start getting accurate reflections back. So, wow, this is a channeled message. So in regards to what Megan was saying, I don't know why this is important, but it's coming through, so I'm going to explain it. Some of us might have some difficulty when we are who we are because we're used to masking. And so you can wow, this is so strong. When you are masking, you are essentially unintentionally manipulating the responses of other people because you are behaving in a way that exists in patterns. So, from a child, like since you were a child, how to behave in a certain way that will get very specific results. And that is what we call masking. That's an oversimplification of it. But what we are asking you to do, and what the embodiment of you is asking you to do, like what the biggest life force creation is asking you to do, is to drop that, stop that, and instead step into you. And then now I'm seeing, as you do that, there's going to be a transition phase. That this is why everything feels like a roller coaster right now, because you're no longer going to have control over the perception of other people. So other people will start to respond to you differently. And we are asking you, when that happens, instead of contracting and constricting and masking, to really just sit with that and in that discomfort and observe how that person is perceiving you, what they are projecting onto you, and what their response to your authentic self is, and to just store that as data in your soul, in your brain, in your emotional being. And then just from there, start to pay attention. And you don't have to make any decisions about anything right away. Nobody's saying to cut anybody out of your life or to make any drastic choices, but just maybe journal it. Maybe think about it for a little bit. And then piece by piece, you can start to move. Instead of manipulating things in our reality so that we can be at peace and in comfort, we are going to learn to move towards what is a match and away from what isn't a match. But the only way we can do that is by actually being ourselves to begin with in the first place.
That really circles back to one of the things I said earlier about how experiencing those discomfort, like experiencing the discomfort and experiencing those bad moments and all of that is just valuable data. And so by having those interactions where you're truly being yourself and you're not masking and you're not trying to project what image of yourself that you think that they need, and it feels like a need whenever I tap into that energy, and I know I've done it myself, is you know what the situation calls for and you're like parroting it back to them instead of being authentic to yourself. And it does feel like a need, and it feels scary and like terrifying to not react in the way that you're expected to react. And whenever you start to drop that guard, and you're not going to do it all at once for sure, when you stop to drop your guard and you remove the mask and you're truly yourself, sometimes it's going to be really uncomfortable, but you're gathering that information surrounding how they're reacting. What are they projecting onto you? You'll see that a lot more clearly, what they're trying to manipulate you into doing for them, or they're shocked or uncomfortable themselves because you're not doing everything the way that they expected you to, because they have this narrative directly around what your role is in their life. And it's uncomfortable. But then you're also going to find with other people this beautiful resonant feeling where they can drop their mask too, and you guys can just vibe together. And it's okay. But that discomfort's important, and it gets better. And you get better at being in it.
And it helps with discernment too. Yes. Like the shielding that you're talking about. So you were talking about, and I'll weave this in. Okay, so I'll talk about my reading, but I'll kind of weave this in because like I'm seeing this visually as someone who is like in a transition process. So, and this is literally what my reading is. So I'm just going to describe it as I see it. And I'm going to tie it in with Megan's reading because it's all literally the same thing. And I can see it much more clearly now, actually, than when we were talking before this. So that's good. So people are going from the energy of masking and living in like preset ideas and perceptions of what they should be. This was very important, and it was important for a long time, because if you just have ether and like things existing, if everything was just abstract and nothing was tangible, there would be no way to understand the universe that we're living in. So it makes perfect sense that the first thing would come is like structure, and the first thing to be here, rather, like as human beings, that the first thing we would create is structure and boundaries and names and roles, and that would be the way of things, because otherwise, how are we going to make sense of anything at all? And we did that for a really long time. And now we're in this phase of transition where we're moving into a new way of being. And the new way of being is what Megan was talking about, where it's all just open and it's all fluid and it's all like it's abstract in a way that couldn't be abstract before, because we needed first to have the concrete idea of what's happening and what's going on. And now that we have that, we're able to move into this more subtle way of being, which is like that energy of, so I'm going to give an example of a person going through this transition experience. Okay. And hold on one second here. Okay. So we have someone who is existing in an environment with individuals who are not a match to their energetic frequency. But this person has only ever existed in that environment. So they do not know or understand how to exist any other way. And then they recognize that this is no longer the way it has to be, because the ripple effect, it's sort of like them existing in that environment creates a ripple. And that ripple has a negative impact on those around them. So they learn how to control what they're emitting, their frequency, that ripple, to not negatively impact others, and to guess ahead of time what's going to be coming at them so that they can deal with it. And then they recognize that there's a place that they can exist and there's a place that they can go where they can freely be that ripple, and it can just operate freely and open in the world and be received and then even expanded upon, maybe even join with others to create a collective ripple. And that feels really good. So in that space, that's amazing and wonderful, but you can't just blink your eyes and all of a sudden have a completely new life with completely new people. So what is being asked of you right now, what's being encouraged of you for you to have the best experience possible, is for you to recognize when you are behaving in the quote unquote old way of being what's expected of you, and when you are around those people, and to first ground yourself and shield yourself so that there are no negative consequences for you being you in that environment, in that vicinity. And what I mean by that is you can be completely you, but you might be triggering people by being completely you, because our world is not used to this yet. This is not something that we do. And so as that happens, remember to ground yourself and shield yourself in whatever way possible. And that will be in our toolkit. We'll talk about, we've already talked about grounding and shielding before, but that will be important with this episode. And then you can go out into those areas and see that any negative response to you being you is just helping you understand where to move away from, and any positive response is where to move to. And then you can start to really build your life in a way where you don't have to shield yourself off from energies in such a harsh manner where you're like having to move away from people, because your new environment will be all of those that you've moved towards. And then it will just be sort of a more subtle, well, okay, a little bit more of this, a little bit less of that, but not so black and white. And that's the energy that we're moving into. But here's the really important piece. not everyone's moving into that energy because not everyone is comfortable with abstractness and that free flow and being themselves. Being yourself means you are also clearing your trauma, your ancestral trauma, and collective trauma. Because in order to be your core self, in order to connect to your core self, you're also connecting to a galactic core and to a collective consciousness. And all of these things will, when you connect to them, will clear your channel, will clear your physical vessel because you are absorbing this light energy. And there will be beings and people on this planet who you love who are not going to want to exist in that energy because it's too unpredictable and they're not comfortable being themselves. And it's really important for us to understand and respect that that is okay, that there is no good, bad, right, or wrong to that, that there is literally just what people feel comfortable existing in and what people do not feel comfortable existing in. And if you are part of the collective that wants to be their authentic self all of the time, and so we're creating new paradigms for that, that's wonderful. But do not force that agenda on those who don't want to live that way, because this is like the radio station. Like, don't force people to change the station to one that you want to listen to if they're still on a different one. And instead, just go to a different car with a different radio. And then you know when to ground and when to shield, right? So once you have an awareness of who you are, what you want, and what your authentic interests are, and who you authentically enjoy being around, then you can know from a larger perspective who to spend time with and who not to spend time with. But you don't have to like preach these things to people that you're spending time with that aren't a match to your energy. In fact, it's not serving you or them. And I think a lot of us get caught up in being concerned or afraid that our family members and loved ones don't agree with us in our spiritual beliefs, and especially in regards to ascension and 5D and awakening consciousness. And that doesn't mean you can't coexist with them. It just means you need to give them the same amount of respect that you're asking from them. And I guess the overall takeaway message from my reading is just that we are moving into this beautiful time that we've worked really hard for, which is out of this paradigm of things being more harsh and more structured, and into a time of things really being connected with the earth and fluid and free flowing, but that all of these things coexist together because not everything's going to be any one way. Instead, we're going to have the option. We are going to have the option to exist as collectives in this energy, but it's not all going to be this way. So it's really this is hugely important. It's up to us to find the people that we resonate with, to create these communities and create these collectives, and know that it's not going to be the whole world. And it was never meant to be the whole world to begin with. It's meant to be your collective world, the world that you're creating for yourself. Oh my gosh, that was like all channeled.
Yeah. And I was over here because all I could hear was the reason I was feeling that resistance to like specific verbiage and specific framing around things is because right now, a lot of people have their own defined terms for everything. They have their own defined narrative, like I've been saying, their own, this is what X, Y, and Z is, this is how it is for me, and that's how it is. And that's what the resistance I was feeling is because we're moving into flow. It doesn't matter what word I use. It doesn't matter what tool I use. It doesn't matter which belief system I structure it from. It's all the same thing. And that's scary to move away from that defined, rigid structure because a lot of people need that to feel comfortable and to feel safe right now.
And trust in yourself. I'm hearing, as you were talking, I'm hearing like trust in ourselves is huge. Oh my gosh, calling myself out here. Boop, boop, boop. I have the hardest time trusting myself, as you all know. But if you don't trust yourself, this is going to be the the most triggering energy you could possibly exist in, because the only foundation, the only thing you're going to be able to stand on is what you know to be true for you, because that will be the only thing that exists. So if you are trying to step into this energy when you don't have full and complete trust over yourself as a sovereign human being that's creating your reality, it is going to be a very shaky foundation. So you want to start there and recognize and have like so much compassion and love for yourself that you have been existing in a world where other people have been constructing your reality without your consent and without your knowledge. And you've been accepting that as real, and you've been accepting that as truth. And this is a step-by-step process where when we first understand that that's what's happening, a lot of us get angry and a lot of us fight against it. And then a lot of us will move into an energy of feeling sort of like depressed or anxious. And then we go through the dark night of the soul, and then we come out on the other end recognizing, okay, these are the tools I got in my toolbox, and now I understand that I can create, and now I'm going to implement that. And it's just figuring out really where you are in that process, where your communities and your loved ones are in that process, and then aligning yourself with people who are in a similar who are in a, this is so channeled, I like can't even breathe, who are in a similar stage. Like I'm not even thinking, you guys, this is all just coming through me. And then you align with people who are in a similar space on that wave, and then continue to have regular daily grounding rituals and shielding and like being in your authentic self, so that you can also recognize when your place on that wave shifts, and you can then move to that new collective as well. Nothing's going to be the same for any long period of time when you exist in this energy. So take it slow as you get there, and just make sure that you are active in your creation the entire time, and that you're not giving away that power to somebody else, whether it be another individual, whether it be your family, whether it be work, whether it be a collective. Like it's really about daily coming back home to center, coming back home to your heart, knowing that you are all of it, and then creating from there.
What I kept hearing during all of that was, it's not about what's happening to you, it's about what is happening for you. So restructuring, it's not about what's happening from an external person, but what's happening in your benefit, what is you're creating.
It's not what's happening. I'm writing that down. If I could write, it's not what's happening. What did you say? To you? Yeah.
It's what's happening for you. So everything is an opportunity to move forward in a new way.
And think about that, guys, that nothing could be more far from the truth, literally, because you are the one creating it. So think, like, it's so simple. It's so simple. It's silly, and everything's a paradox. So because it's so simple, it's also incredibly complex, but you are the only thing that exists, and you are the creator. Mind you, all truths are true. So if you believe in something different than that, then you are also correct. But because you're always creating, of course, you're not going to create something that's happening to you. That would be impossible, because you're the one creating that thing. And if you're the one creating the thing, you're going to be doing it for your benefit because you're creating it.
Heavy energy. I feel it so strongly, and I feel just good. Long pause.
It feels like that to me. It feels like a purging, a literal purging. Yeah. Like Lissa's gone. I don't know where she is, but future Lissa is here, and it feels like sometimes when I channel, it feels like a version of me that is consciously aware in a time and place different than this steps in to deliver messages that may be helpful. And anything that I personally, as a human being on this planet up until this point in time, have experienced becomes like irrelevant, because the message that needs to be spoken is like trumps all else. And that's what's coming through right now. And that tells me that collectively, energetically, we are being asked to level up. And it is heavy energy, because how do I say, I know when it's heavy energy when I'm channeling, because it feels like I'm sitting on a couch in a back room and my whole body's just working for me. Like I'm not doing anything.
It almost feels like your brain is completely turned off and the words are just coming out of your mouth and you have no control over it and you forget to breathe.
Oh, yeah. breathe. But that was helpful. It's a purging. It's a literal purging of all that does not serve us. And the reason that the energy is so heavy is you are being asked to level up. You are literally just everything will be a mirror right now. And the mirror is going to say, thank you, thank you. I wanted to say spirit, but I felt the same thing you felt. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's so weird. Thank you. Enter your divine calling here.
Well, here, I'm going to call this person out, though, in a way that's really loving and kind. And like, do you hear me and Megan hearing you? This is what we're talking about. That we can hear and understand collective energies, as can you. If you did not have the ability to hear and understand collective energy, we would not be able to hear your resistance to the words that we're speaking. And if I were not connected to my higher self, she would not be able to sit here and speak and channel in the way that she is. This is how things are changing. These are the new energies that are online. And what you are being asked is very simple. It's, would you like to exist in this new way of being where things are literally all up in the air and not grounded and not stable and being reorganized and restructured and pulled in from literal higher dimensions and higher frequencies and being like manifested into this physical reality? Do you want to be a part of the co-creation of that? And if so, here's the steps to do that. Or would you prefer to live in the preset reality that exists in front of you? You have free will. You get to decide. Nobody's making you exist in a reality that you're not comfortable with, but you do have the option and the opportunity right now to really, and I'm not kidding you, hear me when I say this, you have the option and the opportunity right now to live the experience of your deepest desires manifested here in 3D reality on this earth. That is possible, but in order to get there, it takes stepping away from other people creating what you know for you and you creating it for yourself. And that's the transition phase we're in.
Yes, and there's no right or wrong answer there as long as it feels right to you. And we all have gone in cycles of waking up and going to sleep and waking up and going to sleep. And as long as you're doing what's in alignment with you, none of the other stuff matters. So take it or leave it, this and that.
All of it. Yeah. Being in alignment, seriously, like that is all that matters, because here's the thing. You can be in alignment and choose to not exist in this new way of being, choose to exist in the quote unquote old way of being. That's divine. That is equally as,
I want to say valid and important.
Yes. And necessary. All is going to coexist here. It is supposed to be that way. You do not go from having a house that only has foundation to having a completely furnished house. You have to go through all of the steps to build the house. And so while we are building the house, things are going to coexist. We're going to have, like people living in this house while the kitchen's being remodeled, while things are being torn apart and put back together. And we just need to make lots of space and lots of room for all the different versions of others and ourselves that will be coexisting in this space.
Deep breath, everyone. It's all good. Thank you for coming along on this journey with us.
Thank you for hearing us today. That was big.
Yeah, it was a big energy, big message. I hope we were clear and concise. And thank you all so much for joining us week to week. It means a lot.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah. So Lissa will be out of town for a period of time. We will still have podcasts. We have one in the backlog. I'm going to be meeting with a guest and talking to them for the next episode that comes out. And she will definitely still be here in spirit.
Very much so.
Yes.
Very much so, because I will be in nature where you all exist all of the time. So, if you have any dreams of me, let me know.
Yeah. And I love that you are able to have that space to take that time to really go out and do the things and travel. And it's okay. because there's no right or wrong way to do anything. And I love that you're making this transition in your personal life. And at the very start of it, you get to travel and be with loved ones and be in nature. I think that's really important.
Thank you. That means a lot to hear from you. Thank you so much.
So, if you want to work with me, I'm at megaruski.com. We can do energy work or design or whatever. I'm pretty open for things. And I know that sounds so vague and annoying, but it's true. And then, Lissa, what is your situation for the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, you guys. Okay, so this is actually really exciting. I will, as mentioned, I will be going away. I'm going to be traveling up to Oregon and Washington and like literally just immersing myself in nature and spending time reconnecting with my partner because it's been an insane month. But lissarosecounseling.com, I have my schedule updated. So I do have openings that you can book right now. And I will be seeing people, clients, as soon as I get back in August or in August. We're in August now. I return August 18th, and I will be seeing people from that point forward, and I will be refreshed and ready to go. One other thing I want to add to that, which will be exciting, is I encourage you all to check out my website right now, lissarosecounseling.com, and just kind of take a peep at it because Megan's going to be completely redoing it. And you all have a pretty good solid sense of my energy at this point because if you've been listening to this podcast, I'm very much myself on here, and I kind of just want you guys to see the before and after because I don't really think my website's a solid reflection of me, and I know that Megan, with what she does in her business, especially with like channeled, what would you even call it, Megan? Channeled what?
Intuitive design. We'll just call it that. We're making
Cool.
it up as we go.
Yeah, intuitive design. I think that it's going to be a much more accurate reflection. And I don't know when that will be out because we're both just really giving ourselves lots of time to allow our schedules to be in flow. But when that does drop, it would be cool for you guys to see the contrast so that if you're interested in working with Megan, then you could, have that be a little inspiration and see if it's in alignment with you.
Yeah, and we'll definitely do before and afters too if you're listening to this in the future. Hi, future people.
Hi, future people.
So thank you guys so much. We love you very much, and we are gonna head off.
All right, and we will put the toolbox exercises in the show notes for you guys.
Yes, we didn't do the homework, but we have our time limit. I'm sorry, guys. We'll
It's
get
all
it
good.
added.
Yeah, we're gonna put I can talk. We're gonna put in grounding and shielding exercises into the show notes for you. And what I'll do is I'll actually link that to some sort of other source that doesn't come from us, so we can just kind of expand that toolbox outward even more.
Yeah. So,
all right, guys.
bye everyone.
Bye.